back to the Seeds of Consciousness podcast. Today we are outside in the beautiful Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island, and I am here with Marcella, who is a veteran in the tree planting industry. She's been in it for quite some time, so I am very excited to be talking to her. She has been requested by name by multiple people, so thank you for being here. To start, how about you tell us just a bit about who you are and how long you've been in the planting industry?
I started planting around close to my last year of university, and I was studying to be an illustrator. So art has always been like my main passion, and nature, of course. So it was pretty cool. My partner at the time, his cousin was a crew boss, and he went planting, and then he told me about it, and I decided to go out. And it was definitely hard and just engulfed all my life. And like I kept on saying that I wouldn't come back, like year after year, and now I'm going into my 10th year. So
wow,
it's I don't know
what keeps bringing you back
so much. I feel like being in nature is, it's a pretty special thing to be able to be out there, kind of isolated, and you form really good, strong bonds with people. I have friends, for life all over Canada, which I think is the strongest point that keeps me coming back, is like forming these friendships and relationships, and also how much it like tests you being out there, and you grow a lot. So it's like 3 months of intensive self-work and just being out there with yourself, basically.
So I'm curious to know, in the about 10 years that you've been in the industry, how has things changed?
Well, I feel like things have changed a lot and not a lot at the same time. There's a lot of changes in the culture. I find that I feel like when I started planting, there was more people coming in that were kind of vagabonds and like artists and people who were like, this is like their lifestyle. And now I'm feeling like it's more people from like more university students and people like wanting to come out and have the Canadian experience of going planting. Yeah, and then also with partying, there's like a lot more intense partying, and they're still partying now, but I find it's a little safer. Like there's been more consideration of people's safety within it.
What do you mean by safer? Like how crazy were these parties before?
Just like there were some pretty crazy parties, good times. It kind of like meshes all into, makes the years kind of mesh into each other.
Your face is getting a little mischievous. I feel like you can't really talk about what happened in those parties.
There's some parties I can't really talk about, but
the statute of limitations hasn't expired yet.
Just like the giant fire sculptures, dancing on top of the 5-ton, dancing in the 5-ton.
5-ton? What is that?
5-ton is like the big truck where like all the camp usually gets put in, and you move camps and you take all the camp out and build it and stuff.
So you're just dancing on top of all the equipment?
But somebody did fall off of the truck and had a concussion, and that totally sobers you up, and it's like nobody wants that. Like nobody wants that. We don't.
Yeah, it kind of kills the career, eh?
Totally, it kills everything. Yeah, not cool.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. And then I also want to know, like, how have things maybe stayed the same within the past 10 years, but in your opinion probably should change?
I feel like this, the culture of, like, working yourself to death in a way, suffering, and I find that there's a lot of, like, shaming still if people are, like, take a day off because they really need to, or their numbers aren't as high as like highballers, for example. I do think that everybody should work their hardest, and you're not here to just like, you don't go planting to just party, like you need to work hard, party hard. Like if not, it's like I get that part, but I do think that there needs to be more of a balance between working really hard and knowing your limits, basically.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I know it's a difficult trade-off for a lot of people because the planting season is limited, right? You only plant for like 45 to 60 days, so like the amount of time you are able to make money is definitely confined. So I see why some people may struggle with that.
Yeah.
I actually want to dive deeper into the whole highballer culture and stuff like that. So can you tell people who may not know what is a highballer, and also like what surrounds all of that mystique?
Okay, well, basically a highballer is somebody who plants a fuck ton of trees. So they're like, you know, they're above average, basically. So there's people planting like 5,000 trees in a day, and they're working really hard. They eat a lot, and you know, everybody wants to plant a lot of trees, so people will look up to the highballers. I like highballers who are not, they don't let it like get to their head, basically. Like you can still be cool and like you're and not be an ass, basically.
Is there some arrogance with a few people?
Sure. Yeah,
interesting.
That happens.
And then so how you said that the highballers, they plant above average. Like what are they planting? How much are they taking home a day compared to everyone else?
So I would say like above 4,000 trees a day.
Wow.
So depending on tree prices, because most of tree planting is piecework. So it's all up to you how many trees you're planting and how much money you're making because of that.
So piecework, if you don't know, is you're not paid by hour. You get paid per tree, and each tree is what, like anywhere from like 15 to 26 cents or something.
Yeah, it's probably like 10 cents to it can be like 25 cents, but that's like more really intense ground.
Yeah.
So depending on the ground you get, what the price will be. It should be fair to like the amount of work that you're putting in. So yeah, highballers are like. To some people it seems like, how do you even like get to that number? Like, how are you doing this? And it's nice when people who are planting that many trees can like help other people out and like kind of give them pointers or like what their technique is and stuff.
Yeah, I was actually asking this to the other two planters that I interviewed, and I was wondering whether like highballers tend to, you know, like share their secrets and tricks of the trade, or is it really much kind of like, no, like I know my thing, I'm doing my thing, and the rest of y'all have to figure it out? What would you say?
I think it's like purely individual based, right? Like a lot of people don't have a problem sharing, because in the end it's like up to each person to understand, to like get it. Like I think there's some moment when you start planting where you suddenly like get it and you're like, oh, I can actually plant this many trees. So it doesn't work for every person. Every person is different. Like some people will be like, you know, they have to have a timer on their watch, and then they know like every 45 minutes, you know, where they should be at, basically.
Okay. And in terms of culture, like, are highballers kind of venerated? Would you say there's like special treatment, or like is it like chill?
There can be some special treatment, maybe more from their crew bosses, because they want them to do well, so that they might put them in better land so that they can plant even more trees, which may seem unfair to people who are planting less, because it's like, well, give me the opportunity as well to do that, right?
Yeah, I feel like it should be the opposite. You know, if you're like really proficient at your job, you should like get the harder land, because they know that you could probably do better on it than other people.
I just think you should mix it up all the time. Like,
absolutely,
everybody should get a bit of everything, and it's the only way you're going to learn. Also, is like, if you just have it easy, you're not going to learn to plant like harder ground.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to switch gears a little bit because you mentioned that you're not only a tree planter, you've done a couple of years of cooking, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about the world of being a bush chef?
Yeah, well, it's intense. It's really intense. Like, I actually started cooking. I planted for 4 seasons, basically. And on my last season, I don't even remember. I broke my toe, and that's I'll just tell you the story.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so it had been raining for like 5 days nonstop. My boots are soaked. Like everything in the inside of the tent is just like moist, and I'm just like not happy. So I woke up and like it's still pouring. I'm pacing around my tent, just like so pissed off. Just like I'm not a robot. Like I'm not a robot. I have feelings, and like I don't want to do this today. And just trying to like, I don't know, convince myself that to take the day off, which I didn't. And I go and I kick my bag of clothes. I kick it really hard, and my foot hurts, and I'm like, fuck. Anyway, put on my boots. I go to breakfast. I go planting, and I plant like 300 trees, and I'm like, I can't. Like my foot hurts so much, and I take off my boot, and my foot is just like purple and like twice as big. Yeah, and so after that, I'm in camp, and I can't plant really, and it just like perfect synchronicities were happening where the cooks unfortunately were not getting along, and they were actually paying me under the table to help them.
Wow.
Like with their tasks and stuff, and I ended up replacing the assistant cook. And so I did that for about a month, and then I went back to planting. So that was like my first little like intro into the cooking scene.
Yeah.
And after that, I was an assistant for the next few seasons. So that was like the gear change.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It honestly, I don't think anything was coincidental, because they say that like whatever you tell your subconscious mind, it will just carry out no matter what, without question. So that morning you were like, I hate this, I don't want to do this, there was so much resistance, and like your body created the perfect opportunity for you not to plant. But I'm glad that you had a fallback, and you didn't have to like hemorrhage money for the rest of the season.
But also be careful what you wish for, because I know, when you're out in the block, like I think almost everybody has wanted to like hurt themselves. Like they're just like, I just hope a stick in the slash pile just like stabs me or something, because you like hate it so much, and then like you'll slip, and you're like so close, and you're like, no, like I don't actually want to get impaled. Like,
yeah. Well, words have power, you know. Like
exactly,
look at the word spelling, right? They're spells.
It's a spell. Yes, I like that.
All right. So diving deeper into cooking,
Yes.
like how hard can it be for someone who's never seen a planting chef? Like all you're doing is making delicious food all day.
Yeah, I think that's a big misconception that planters have sometimes. Like they're working all day in the field, and they come back and they're like, oh, you've just been cooking all day. But it is a lot of pressure, because you can't fuck up. There's not enough time for you to make another meal, for example, and then you have to make sure everybody's getting enough food is very important.
Yeah, because how many people are you usually cooking for?
Well, when I started, I was cooking for about 90 people, myself and my assistant. It's usually one cook and an assistant, depending, and now with COVID, I think sometimes it's more. But what was I saying?
How many people are you cooking for?
Oh, yeah, 90 people. Yeah,
90 people.
90 people, and there's all kinds of like different dietary needs. Some people are vegetarian. There's more vegans. There's people who are allergic to certain things. So you have to make sure everybody is getting fed and they have enough food. Like come back for seconds, come back for thirds. So you have to be cooking for like 300 people. And
wow.
Yeah, it's like all kinds of things happen in camp. So you have to be ready to like roll with the punches.
Like
basically.
what?
Like maybe the water the water pump stops working and there's no checkers. So I don't know if you know about checkers.
I understand what checkers do like on the block, but what do they do at bush camp?
Depending on the company, they also help with the camp.
Okay.
So making sure things are running smoothly. The water pump, that there's enough propane, the showers, like basically making sure everything's like flowing. Good.
And it's a livable rural situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but things can happen. Another little story.
Hell yeah.
There was one season where my oven was like not really working, like the oven would go out, and it was getting to a point where I was scared to like light the flat top because it would just kind of like not light, so it just like letting out gas. And I had like dreams of explosions and like burnt people and like just horrifying images. Anyway, one day I'm like, I've had enough, I can't light it. The supervisor can't light it, and planters are planting, they still need dinner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we were about an hour. It was like an hour ride. We had to cross a barge across a lake, and then from there it was like an hour and a bit to town. So the supervisor had to go and get pizzas, get like whatever they could at this small town to feed all these people, and then we just made as many salads and things that didn't involve cooking, basically. And the planters came back, and it's like, oh, like, you fucked up. But it's like, no, dude, like, I tried to do everything, and I'm sorry you don't have enough pizza slices or whatever. Like, shit just happens.
So are cooks, like, oftentimes, like, in the dichotomy between being perceived as, like, a hero and a villain, or is it usually, like, pretty positive relationship with the planners?
Yeah, usually it's pretty positive. People will appreciate you, and I think if you're doing a good job, everybody should be appreciating you, because it's like such a big part of your day. Coming home and having like a nice nutritious meal to eat is like a make or break, I find. Like, absolutely, so many people have told me they would have quit if they didn't have like this to come home to, basically. Wow. So that, in that sense, it's like, it's really nice to hear from people, get feedback from both sides, you know, what's working, and like saying thank you, not forgetting that we are we're people working behind this to like get this to you. It's nice to like get that positive feedback, for sure. Would you say that cooking in the bush is a very creative process? Like, how do you always come up with new recipes? How do you keep yourself from like burning out and getting stale? And do you have like cookbooks that you follow? What's up with all that? I've just always enjoyed cooking, and I think I do find it to be an art as well. So, absolutely. And I feel like I'm like kind of a witch in my kitchen, just like putting a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and like I like to make a menu, but still have space to play around with. And always like experimenting with new recipes and stuff, either online or through friends. I have Guatemalan citizenship and Canadian citizenship, and I've been diving more into like my Guatemalan cooking recipes and stuff. So I'm excited to bring some of that into this season. Absolutely. Wow. So like, do you ever get into a situation where like you're completely burnt out and you literally don't know what to cook? Because I have sure dealt with that. I don't know if it's just because like my culinary knowledge is limited. I would say I'm a pretty good cook too, but there's just some times where like you're making the same thing over and over again with the same ingredients, and you just don't know how to think outside of the box. Yeah. Have you ever been in that situation? Yes. I find breakfast to be the hardest, and I'm sure a lot of planters can like attest to that, because it's like usually there's cereal and yogurt and all that stuff, and then we have a hot breakfast, and it's hard sometimes to mix it up throughout the whole season, like 60 days of like, okay, I'm gonna make the eggs different, and I'm gonna like make it into a wrap now, and I'm gonna make quiche now. Not everybody likes quiche, and like I'm gonna do like egg shakshuka, and like not everybody likes that. It's like, so it's like you try to change it up, but it doesn't work for everybody. And I find like breakfast is probably what I struggle with the most. Like, I think I still keep it pretty varied, but it's like, I feel like there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, at least with like the typical breakfast foods. Breakfast is interesting because for me, like that's the one meal where I don't mind having the exact same thing every day. Like I have my breakfast, I like it, like I don't really care about changing that up. But I think a lot of people, like we just have like fixated on like thinking like this is what breakfast is, you know, eggs, bacon, bread, cereal, milk. Whereas like most people just eat like leftovers or like savory things. Like who's to say you can't have pasta for breakfast?
Yeah.
Especially when you're about to go planning. Like, it's probably better for you anyways.
Yeah, no, everybody's different. That's the thing. Like, people are either really stay with a routine and, like, they like the same breakfast all the time. And then some people get bored of it and skip breakfast sometimes. Some people don't have breakfast. Yeah, it depends on each person for sure. I've even done, like, we called it the miso club with the cook that I used to work with, Nolan. He had a miso club, and so certain people like to have miso soup in the morning.
Nice.
So they'd bring their cup, and you'd have a little bit of miso with whatever else you wanted.
Oh,
which was
that's
nice.
so cute. Okay, so would you say you like planting or cooking more? Or is it hard to compare?
It's very different for sure. This last season I got to plant and cook.
Okay.
So I had, some like a couple of weeks at the start of the season where I was planting, and in between the season I did like a week or something because people were away from camp. And what I like about planting is you have so much shorter hours, and
really
you like only rely on you only have you to
rely on,
and like you don't have to do anything for anybody else necessarily. Like, whereas when you're cooking, you like everybody's relying on you, and you can't fuck up, and it's really long hours.
What's that look like?
Yeah, so a typical day of cooking would be, I would get up at, or I'll start work at 4 in the morning.
Wow.
So it's generally around 2 hours before breakfast starts.
Okay.
And like get the coffee started, get like whatever bacon and all that going, and then planters will start coming in, making their lunches, and you gotta make sure that there's enough food on the lunch table. And people eat breakfast, and then they'll go, and then you clean everything, you wash all your dishes, do all that, and then there's like the assistant usually will do all the baking for like cookies and stuff for the lunch table, and hummus, and I'll do some prep for dinner, and then I would usually go for a nap, and then come back and do dinner. So it depends on what you're doing. It could take 5 hours. It could take, like, if you're slow cooking something and making bread and doing all that. And then planters will come back from planting. They'll eat their dinner, seconds. People come late, don't come late for dinner.
Because there's no guarantee they'll save the food?
Well, we try to, but it's like you're extending the cook's day as well. And so we want everybody to eat, and we want everybody to have enough for sure. And then you wash all the things again, and if there's any prep you need to do for breakfast. So you want to try to go to bed to have at least 6 hours of sleep. But
at least.
Yeah, at least. And then sometimes it's less for sure, but
wow.
It's all about like trying to balance that, and like some days making an easier meal, you get a little bit more time off.
Yeah. So like, do cooks also operate within like the 3 days on, 1 day off policy, or what's that like for breaks?
Generally, yes. I think one of the issues with that the industry has is trying to find how to give cooks more time off, because it still hasn't really worked out. I've never had like many days off during the season, and you definitely like are kind of burnt out, and like I feel like we're a big part of morale.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, who's taking care of our morale? Like, I'm trying to like, help everybody in camp, and I'm like, I need help too sometimes, right? So yeah, it's just like finding that balance again of wanting to like work really hard and like make everybody enough food and all that, and like not getting lost. I don't know. But I think that so like this season, because of COVID, people aren't going into town. So usually you'd go into town and you would eat something in town and like go thrift shopping, whatever, do your laundry. And with COVID,
and that was your day off, right, when the planners were in town?
No, that was the day you go and shop for the food for the next 3 days. So you have a little bit less time that you're working, but you're still working.
Okay.
And
but with COVID,
we're doing we have to feed the planters because they're in camp.
So it's more work.
It's more work, yeah. But
Interesting.
depending on each company, they have like some companies have one head cook and 3 assistants, and sometimes like can move those around, or there'll be some help for you to take a little extra time off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Marcella. So now I kind of want to walk down memory lane with you. Tell me a bit about some of your favorite memories within the last decade.
Okay. Favorite memories. Definitely a lot of dance parties, themed dance parties have been like, it's still something that I look forward to, in my non-planting life. But in the planting world, it's more extreme, I think, in a way. So there's been like super fun themed parties.
Like
There's this one where we were in like a field, and there was definitely some drugs involved, some acid and
hell yeah,
other stuff, and just everybody's just dancing, and at some point like half of the whole camp is naked, and like it was like, and then it starts raining, and like you just like feel great.
Oh,
and
how cleansing.
Yeah, super cleansing. You're like dancing around the fire, and yeah, you make great bonds in those moments for sure.
Yeah.
That was a great party. Yeah.
Have you ever had any good moments on the block?
Oh yeah. I think I remember mostly the not good moments on the block.
No.
But there's lots of like peaceful, you're in a flow, and you'll see like I remember I was planting with a partner, and we walked to the end of our block, and there was two big moose, and they were like not too far, so I think that's like, you get these like little special moments where it's like, it feels like a secret thing that
not many people,
Yeah.
I've never seen a moose in my life, so not many people get those experiences.
Yeah, we get even like the bear encounters, and all that is like,
I was just about to ask you that. Special.
I find it special. It's scary. I've never had like too close of an encounter. I've heard some horror stories for sure.
Like
Scalp getting ripped off, and there's one that a bear killed a dog. And,
okay.
Yeah, there's so many
Yeah.
bear stories for sure.
There are bear stories, but you would say like in terms of bear deaths and injuries for the planters and stuff,
It's not like a
uncommon.
huge thing that happens, but it
Okay.
happens.
Yeah.
Sure. Like we'll have bear spray, and you'll be trained to like deal with that, and hopefully you have somebody around who can help you.
Yeah. Would you say that that's like something that like freaks a lot of the rookies out?
I I don't know. I think it should freak people out, you know, for sure. But like, yeah, you gotta be educated in like, what am I gonna do in this situation? Because it could happen, right?
They say alert but not anxious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then it's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you suffer unnecessarily in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about we talk about some of your more emotionally painful
Oh my god.
times, if you don't mind, just to give people a very holistic perspective of what they're signing up for.
Well, I think wasps are like a big, like, it's just not fun at all. And my last year that I did a full season planting, we were in Fort Nelson, and we were planting in like raw ground, so it's like basically forest, and it hadn't been touched in like 8 years. So it was just like everything's overgrown, you can't see your partner, and we would get dropped in by helicopter. And then our first bag up, we hit like 7 nests in our first bag up, right? So it's like you're starting your day, we hit so many nests. Our friend George, he like just like this awesome guy, super strong, and I have never heard a man scream. Like, it was like, holy shit.
What do you even do when you hit a wasp nest?
You run away from it and you try not to leave your shovel there.
Yes, I heard
Yes,
that.
yes.
Rookie mistake.
Yeah,
Oh
then you gotta
my
go back
gosh.
for sure.
How much have you been bitten in like a single day by a wasp?
I don't know. I was
Enough to hallucinate?
pretty lucky. No.
Okay.
I was pretty lucky. Like, other people in my camp weren't as lucky. For sure, like, people coming back with, like, they couldn't open their eyes because they were planting and they stood up and hit a nest with their head, and like, yeah, it's just basically we were all scared. We didn't want to plant anymore, and they did raise the prices, but it's like, is it worth the torture? Can I just be done? Like,
Wow, interesting. It's funny because like the 2 ladies that I interviewed before this, they said the same thing. It's the wasps that get you, you know,
Wasps, yeah.
like no mention of mosquitoes or horseflies
you
or
get
gnats.
used to those, I think.
No? It's, okay.
Yeah, the horseflies though, depends on where you are.
Yeah.
They can be pretty bad. I remember one day I decided to count how many I killed. So this is just like by purely as I'm working, right? And I'm not just focusing on killing them. And I counted 45, and then I stopped counting because I was like,
Wow. Wow. And that's the amount you killed. That's not the amount that could
No.
totally fucked with you, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, interesting.
So those are like definitely the worst. And then just times where you like get in your head a lot, or like one thing can be like having relationships that are outside of planting. So like I had a partner that had never gone planting, and you know, you go through moments in your relationship, and like you know, you could have had a little discussion, and then you can be in the block for 7 hours overthinking things and like just getting really in your head, but you don't have any, if you don't have any signal, you don't have a way to communicate with them, and like so there can be like definitely personal things that you're dealing with in your day, and it can go either way. Like, you can work through things, or you can like kind of get lost in your
Just
brain too.
yeah, just like repeating these torturous thoughts.
Yeah.
So like, what has helped you in those moments that like you get in your head? Like, how do you manage that?
I think just focusing on what's around you, and like yeah, just like the fact that you're walking on this land that, you know, you're one of the only people ever who's gonna walk every single little piece of that land. And so I like thinking about stuff like that, and like,
It's very meaningful, eh?
yeah, and just like little things that bring joy, like, you know, seeing this little like spider made their little home in this perfect hole or whatever, or like this cute bird, you know, has been following you around. I don't know, little things can like totally change your mood and your mindset.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Amazing. All right, so I kind of want to talk more about art. Because you mentioned that that's a lot of artists go here, and in my previous podcast they also talked about how a lot of inventions and songs and pieces of art are made especially on your days off. So can you talk a little bit more about that? You told me that your shirt was actually designed by a tree planter.
Yeah, this is my friend Anthony. He made this beautiful shirt. I know you can't really see it from that far, but
I'll zoom in. Yeah. Interesting.
And you know, I've met like awesome artists for sure. People who are musicians. I suggest anybody to bring their instruments if they can, because I think it not only brings joy to yourself, but it brings joy to the whole camp to like, you know, have people around that play music and share your talent with other people. And you'll usually meet other people who also play, and you can jam and grow as an artist. I also they have the talent shows, and a lot of people's talents will come out through that you weren't aware, or like little art shows, which is nice. One of the from silly things to like stuff that you're like super impressed by, like fire hula hooping and I've started doing fire spinning, and it's been through people I've met planting, and then people I've met on the island as well, which has been pretty cool.
That's awesome. I didn't know that aspect of the culture. It seems like you get the entire human experience there, the trials and tribulations, but also the moments where you can really just connect with yourself, connect with others, connect with music and art. That seems so beautiful.
Yeah, I've definitely found a lot of inspiration in my own art through planting, and just like especially when I was tree planting and having the days off and just like drawing and sitting outside and just making art. A lot of times, like most of my art has to do with nature and kind of like the different facets of transformation from like I feel like in each one of our lives we go through growths and rebirths and deaths, and we're like composting parts of ourselves to like feed another part and grow it. So that's what I mostly like do in what I create. I also started tattooing when I was planting. So I started doing stick and pokes, and I'm sure a lot of you have little Marcella pokes from when I started, and it was all with like a sewing needle.
Nice.
In India ink, and then I got more seriously into it, and now I have a machine and like.
Yeah, I actually saw some of your work. I was like, damn, like, should I ask her to give me a tattoo?
Someday.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing. I can really now start to see why people come back like year after year. But I'm curious to know, like, what do you do with your off season? And can you talk about like planting as a long-term career? I've talked to people who've said that it isn't really sustainable.
I think it depends on each person. Like I know people who are in their 50s who are planting and have been planting, you know, most of their life and have found a good balance in that. For me, I don't think I want to do this, you know, it's already been a long, you know, career. But I don't want to do this for, you know, another 10 years, I don't think. But what I'm trying to do is to invest that money that I'm making into the kind of reality that I want to be living. Because you can easily get into this cycle where you're making money, and then you're spending it on the off season and living comfortably, and then you have no money at the start of the season, and the cycle kind of repeats. But you're not feeding any other.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah, you're not, like, I mean, like, that's yeah. I don't think you necessarily have to, like, you know, go anywhere with your life as long as you're enjoying it. But I do think that, like, if there's like a mediocre comfort is what I call it, when you keep on doing something because you know it, because it's comfortable, but you're not necessarily growing, or you're not necessarily like feeding your like future self in that aspect. So
I
think,
resonate with that.
cool. Yeah, I think it's like it can be sustainable to plan for a long time, but yeah, you gotta take care of your body, and you gotta take care of yourself, and
You got to know when to quit.
you gotta know when to quit. Yes.
Okay. So I also heard that a lot of people will try to make as much money as they can during the season and then claim EI for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that? Like, what's that about?
Yeah, I mostly didn't do it. This year I'm doing it, and I did it a little bit last year, and it's awesome. Like, I think if you're able and you want to work, you should, and if you don't, you don't have to. Like, I feel like I'm paying, like they're taking a big portion of my paycheck every month to pay for your unemployment insurance. So I'm like, well, I want my money back in a way. You know, I worked for that money.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I find the time off of planting, like, and having that money allows me to have more time to like focus on those things and not have like so much the pressure of paycheck to paycheck, which is what a lot of the world is living on. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to make any judgments. I'm just curious, in your opinion, like, do you think that that's right, you know, to, like, I know obviously you're working really freaking hard at this job, but then for the rest, like 6 months of the year, just like being on EI, of course it, like you said, there's definitely a case, if you're like doing that to like just make enough to be comfortable and then pursue other interests, and again, like move past that mediocre comfort and create stuff. But for the people who just like work tree planting and then sit on EI for the rest of the year, like, would you say that that's justifiable? Oh, wow.
Sorry.
It's okay. That was a beautiful interruption. Would you say that that's justifiable?
Yeah, I think like every person should be responsible for their own life and time, and like whether it might not be healthy for everybody. You know, some people might use that money to just like eat unhealthily and do video games and whatever, like, but that's up to each person at the same time. Like, I don't really feel like they're taking away from society from doing that. That's like their
I mean, they paid
life.
their dues, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I don't either. I was just curious to know your opinion. Thank you for that. I want to switch gears a little bit now as well and talk about what it's like to be a woman in this industry.
Okay. Well, I feel like I have many opinions on it. There's definitely been like a lot of like the macho culture, because it's seen as a more like masculine job.
Is it male dominated?
Like, more male dominated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there's been a lot of women who come into the industry and surprise people. Sometimes people think these like petite women are like not gonna make it and blah blah, and they turn out to be like such a strong, hard worker, and just like can do much better and eat much more than these dudes or whatever. I find in general, like, there can be, and there has been a lot of discussion around sexual assault, and it's something that I don't think is just tied to planting culture. Like, it's something that is a problem in our world, in our society, and it's not, just in this pocket, but we have to do something. We got to talk about it. We have to work on our policies for each company to take it more seriously, because it's, too many women have gone through something and are not being heard, and that's just not cool, at all. And but I do think that it's something we'll change our policies, and we'll have more conversations about it. But I think humans are a little slow sometimes at changing in the culture. So it takes extra time, but that doesn't mean we have to stop fighting it.
That doesn't excuse anyone's behavior.
No. Yeah. I think that it's time for men to be a little more active on that front, and listen to your female friends and your the femmes in your life that are telling you these things. And unfortunately, almost every woman that you've ever known has gone through something in their life, where the lines were crossed in a way, and that shouldn't be the norm.
I'm definitely not excusing anyone's behavior, but I can definitely see how with how wild and free the culture in the bush life is, that it is sometimes, I guess, hard to maintain and respect those kinds of boundaries, right? There's a bit of I don't know, gray area, and or maybe more of a laissez-faire, lax attitude towards those things, right?
Yeah, there can be, but I don't think it matters if it's more relaxed or not. It's still a professional company. You're still being hired to work somewhere, and you shouldn't be left alone to deal with something. Of course, there's all kinds of situations where somebody did something and it wasn't fully consensual, but the other person thought it was, and so there needs to be more mediation as well, and be able to sit together and talk about things if it's safe to do so, with somebody who's neutral on the topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I still want to talk about being a woman planter. How does having a female body or something impact the way you plant? Because I heard that for women, it's actually easier to keep your planting bags on your body because you have the wider hips, right? Can you speak a little bit more on that? Is there more to that?
Yeah, I think female body, you have more a center. Your balance is more in your center, in your core, and so a lot of times you have easier time just carrying the weight on your hips. And personally, I like to just not have my shoulder straps, and I felt it got in the way of my boobs, and it was uncomfortable. I would start with the shoulder straps because it might be too heavy, and then I would take them off. But I don't think it's much different. There's all this talk about the sexes and men's bodies being more for this and women's bodies being more for that, but I think that we're finding more and more that that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, well, we definitely are more similar than we are different, but we have to admit that there are biological differences.
Oh, yeah.
Would you say that men on average tend to be able to plant more than women? How large is that kind of disparity?
I guess so. I don't know, by how much. It could be, a couple hundred trees or 1,000 trees, but I can't really speak on that. I'm not sure.
Of course, it always depends on the individual as well, right?
Yeah, and now we're also becoming more aware of, the the reality of gender, and that it's not so binary. So divided, one and the other. So I do find that there's always people who surprise you and don't fit into the...
They break the mold.
Yeah, break the mold.
Okay, cool. All right, so to end things, I just want to ask for some advice as a rookie going into their first season, and for anyone else watching, what would you recommend just so that we can prepare ourselves, you know, like physically and mentally? Is there any gear or preseason training that you recommend, like especially in the training side of things? Like what kind of muscles and exercises should I do to like really strengthen and prepare my body?
I definitely think that doing some exercising before the season is important, so you're not like injuring yourself when you start, but also important to like once you start to pace yourself. There is a lot of information out there specifically for planters to do certain exercises. You want to strengthen your wrists, and your whole body is going to be involved in it. And then I feel like there's certain things that you can try to train, but it's not until you're there that you'll really like understand what it is you're doing. And then for gear, socks are very important. I find like bringing just lots of socks, like nice warm ones. A lot of people will wear double socks, and then one sock will get like wet, and the other one will take a little bit longer to get wet, and then you can change your socks on your way home, and it makes like just such a difference.
Yeah, I found that when I was working for a biological research NGO in Costa Rica, I was there during the rainy season, and the one thing that like killed my mood every single day was just having wet underwear. It just felt like I was wearing a wet diaper, and like you'd wake up in the morning, it's fucking pouring rain, and within like 3 seconds of going outside, it gets wet, and that just kills my mood. So I definitely agree with you. Socks, underwear, like how many
rain
pairs?
Jacket.
How many pairs do you bring with you?
I don't know, probably like 40 pairs or more.
Really?
Yeah, like if you have how to bring them over. Yeah, but you'll be able to do laundry, of course, but it's nice to like just know that you have...
You won't run out.
Yeah.
Okay.
40 is like good, I think.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And then like you want to have a good space to come back to, like your tent or your van or whatever you got, like that is your home for 3 months or whatever amount of time that you're working. And it is very important to have, you know, a place where you feel safe and comfortable. And sometimes I liked living in my tent more than I did when I moved back to the city. Like,
really?
So it could make a big difference. I'm like, I could live in my tent all year if it was nice out. Yeah.
And you mentioned it's important to be able to stand up in your tent, eh?
Well, personally, I like to stand up in my tent. I like to be able to change comfortably and dance around by myself if I wanted to, or like stretch, and like have your own like private, very thin-walled private space.
Yeah, at least no one will see you when you're sobbing your eyes out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They'll hear
just
you.
they'll just hear the screams of heartbreak.
Yeah. Speaking of that, sometimes you'll be in what they call a tent city, which is when everybody's cramped together in a smaller space, and can be pretty funny, like hearing people fart and snore and have weird dreams, and you'll hear people having sex for sure as well. But just gotta have humor on it.
Yeah, so I guess finding the joy in things, that's especially important to keep your sanity, right?
Yeah, totally.
What other things do you like suggest either bringing or practicing in order to like really get you through the season psychologically speaking?
I think journaling is pretty awesome. I know not everybody's into it, but if you've never tried, I would suggest doing that. Even like, it's kind of like a diary, but it doesn't just have to be like a diary where you share your thoughts or like your goals. It can be about you know, how you're doing planting or things that you can't necessarily talk with other people, I do find that it's like it just helps you understand yourself more.
Absolutely.
And then like bringing anything that brings you joy when you're doing it. So like if you're an artist, to do have art supplies at hand, or I definitely suggest to bring an instrument, and like people love having people around who are playing. Don't bring a recorder,
No.
but bring your guitar or your
Yeah.
drums or whatever.
Only the cool instruments.
Only the cool instruments. You can bring a ukulele is fine.
What? Why do you say it like that? I play the ukulele.
Well, it depends. I think it's an instrument that sometimes gets a bad rep, but I don't think it needs to. That's why
Yeah.
I say you should
Yeah.
bring it.
This was going great. I liked you,
You know
up
what?
until that moment. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. I really appreciated you sitting down, talking to me, sharing your perspective. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as well. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. There will be more tree planting videos coming up, as well as other things. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.